Hey everybody, it's Josh. I'm here at one of my favorite places to come in Raleigh. It's called the Historic Oakview Park, and they have goats here. I've seen since they were little kids, I guess you call them. I don't know, baby goats are called. Got Pecan Grove right behind me. Just a beautiful plantation. I'll see if I can get over here and kind of get it in the background a little bit for a minute. But I wanted to do a video today about unfaithfulness in relationships. And obviously this highway is going to be pretty loud in the background. Great people with the mufflers. There's the Historic Oakview main house. It's a very, very beautiful place. We have a problem today that has existed time and time again throughout recorded history. We have men and women who are unfaithful. We have men and women who don't care about anything but themselves. They have narcissistic personalities. Their selfishness guides them. They don't care about God. They wouldn't dare let some other force be greater than themselves. This is a problem that has existed, and the Old Testament points it out time and time again. You look at the story of Elijah and Jezebel. You look at Samson and Delilah. Look at Hosea and Gomer, which is not a very pretty name. Gomer was one of the ones that I never even knew about before I was saved. I was reading the Bible and I came across Hosea. I'm like, I don't even know who Hosea is. Hosea was a prophet, and God commanded him to marry a prostitute who he knew was going to be unfaithful to him. Which, that you might think is cruel. But he was doing this to point out the fact that we are always unfaithful to God. We doubt God. We betray God. We are unfaithful to God on a daily basis. Even the most devout are like this. It's not just the evil people out there. We all are. Every time we sin, we are doubting God. Because if we truly believed in God 100% with all of our heart, how could we bring ourselves to sin? And if we did, we would just be broken by it. But I picked out Gomer, Jezebel, and Delilah for a reason, because that seems to be the common actions. You know, women seem to emulate them nowadays. We have this women's empowerment, which is great. Women should be empowered. Mary Magdalene obviously was a great figure in the New Testament. And she was really probably the rock of all the disciples, even though she wasn't technically a disciple, and Peter was the rock. But you could not make in that society a woman be elevated to that status. But Christ did it anyway. Although it was not blatantly said, Mary Magdalene was one of the most faithful and one of the greatest figures in the New Testament obviously besides Jesus Christ himself, who nobody will ever live up to, because he is Lord. But I want to point out how our society as a whole is corrupted to the core. And this is what spreads like wildfire. To point that out, I want to take you to a story, the story of Sodom and Gomorrah, which is in Genesis. Now, Abraham's nephew Lot was in Sodom when the angels came and God's judgment was about to be laid down upon him. Lot tried to beg for them to reconsider. And he begged the angels to stay in his house, in the protection of his house, which they did. But yet still the men of the town came and surrounded the house and commanded Lot to bring out the newcomers. Lot even went as far as offering his 2 daughters instead of the angels. And the men were about to just cut Lot down. They said, who's this guy to tell us he's a newcomer too? They were going to do something I can't say on YouTube. Rhymes with grape. And finally the angels were like, you know what? This is ridiculous. They went out there and they blinded all of the men who were trying to come in and assault them. The angels told Lot and his family to flee. And of course they did. They were fleeing. They said, just don't look back. Whatever you do, don't look back. Lot's wife, she looked back. She was a pillar of salt, as the same happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. But that's not even the end of the corruption of that story. That's just the beginning. And it doesn't go into it nearly as much. I'm kind of summarizing and paraphrasing a lot of stuff here. So Lot took his daughters to a cave to live. They were terrified after what they had witnessed. And they didn't even see Sodom and Gomorrah just be turned into salt. Like some kind of nuclear explosion or something. So eventually, Lot's daughters, who had spent way too much time in Sodom, they said, well, how are we gonna get pregnant and have children when we're stuck in this cave? This is where the really sick part comes in. So they get their father wasted drunk 2 nights in a row. Or 2 separate nights. We don't know if it's 2 nights in a row. And they, without his knowledge, because he was basically blacked out, they went and laid with him. Both got pregnant. Well, they both had children, and they both birthed children who, one was the head of the Moabites and one the Ammonites. 2 of the great adversaries of Israel. 2 of the worshipers of false gods. You know, you got Moloch, you got Baal, you've got all these false gods who weren't just bad because they were worshiping some false god. That's bad enough in God's eyes. But they were just as corrupt as can be. They would sacrifice their children to the gods, the false gods. Moloch especially was one of the worst. I believe he was in the Ammonites, but I could be wrong. Remember, I have the memory of a goldfish. So why am I telling you this? Why am I telling you this disgusting story, which we should all know because it's in Genesis? Well, I'm telling you this because we see how it progressed. You have non-stop child sacrifices to these gods. You have these cities and these areas where they are born of corruption. And we always blame corruption and evil on the individual. But we don't stop and look at how the corruption is spread throughout our whole society. Now think about the world today. Think about little by little how we allow more corruption into this world. How we allow ourselves to be more and more inoculated to this darkness. I've always been for gay marriage, right? I was a libertarian. I don't care. It doesn't bother me one bit. It still really doesn't. But here's the problem, and I didn't believe it in the beginning, but now I do. It is a slippery slope. When we start not only just accepting these things as normal, but celebrating them, we have to actively affirm these things. So we have men in the women's bathrooms, locker rooms. Nobody cares about the poor women the poor girls, sometimes as young as in middle school, who have to be subjected to that. And nobody thinks, oh, maybe a horny little schoolboy is going to pretend he's a girl just to get in there and get them at their most vulnerable. But that's just yet another example of the corruption that we allow and we affirm. And if we say anything, which I'm saying now, and if anybody's listening who is not my average listener, they're going to be pissed off, I'm sure. We allow these things one by one by one, and we say, well, that's not too bad, so we give an inch. We give an inch and they take a mile. And then another thing, and another thing, and another thing. And we are celebrating atheism and witchcraft and all of these evil things. It's not just, what I was talking about, the Transformers and stuff like that. It's not just, it is just the corruption as a whole. And it's a consequence of turning away from God. And these relationships that we are in, they are corrupted by it as well. Because women don't need no man anymore, and men sure as hell don't have time to deal with the women. They don't have the patience, they don't have the love to give them. And they're only thinking about themselves and never God. They're never trying to be a better follower, a better servant of Christ. No, they could care less. And in fact, if you are a Christian and if you tell them, hey, maybe you should maybe you should start rethinking your ways. Man, you are the biggest bigot piece of garbage there is. You are like the caveman coming up there trying to just infect everyone with your anti-science, anti-this and that. So that's our society. That's our world now. I mean, there's places that are less so. There's places that are more so. Look at France. Look at what happened during the Olympics, opening and closing ceremonies especially. And they kept telling us that's not about Christianity. That's not the Last Supper that they were mocking there. It sure as hell was. It sure as hell had a lot of demonic imagery and a lot of demonic references too. But that's France, so, There's a few places in the world that still hold Christian values to the ideal. And now we see that because there's only those few places left and they really have no or very little power, our world is decaying. Our world is it's a castle made of sand, and it's crumbling to the sea as we speak. I don't know if there's anything. Well, the only one who can save it is God. The only people who can save it are the ones who turn to God. And if we don't turn to God, then we are lost forever. But the day of judgment is coming. But I understand that it's so hard if you're especially approaching or are a middle-aged man and you're single and you've always, you've been looking for a woman and all you see is just, nonstop corruption. And it's hard to find a good Christian woman or girl. It's hard to find anyone who has any kind of values. And even the Christian women and men, I'm not letting men off the hook either, because the Bible points out plenty of men, including King David, who were they just got corrupt to the core. And now King David did repent, and he did pay for those sins, but still, who was it? He wanted his servant's wife, so he had his servant killed. Bathsheba is what we wanted. We are so lost, and I understand, and I get it, and I really think, I've been thinking about how the Apostle Paul says we need to be equally yoked. I don't know how that's even possible. If you're a born-again Christian, I don't know. I understand if you both grew up devout Christians, it's a lot easier. But if you're born again and you came back, you're the prodigal son that came back to the faith, I don't know. I can tell you nobody in my life understands or really believes even the power of God, because that's what we've become. I shouldn't say it doesn't bother me. It absolutely bothers me that we have gotten to a point where there's any explanation except for God. I keep showing everyone in my life, I'll even show atheists a lot of times, how over and over and over again, God gives me signs. God performs miracles in my life. God works through me. But they don't believe it. And I don't know if God coming down and telling them who he is, his nature, would even convince them. I don't know. And as I said the other day, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. We struggle, but you know what? Apostle Paul also told us that it is better to be chaste. It is better to take that vow of celibacy. But who's going to do that in today's society? That is just we think nonstop about, oh, we need a woman or we need a man. We need someone right here. We absolutely need our Christian brothers and sisters. We need them to lean on. We absolutely do. I can tell you right now, for me, the only people I need to take care of my girls because I have a responsibility for them. I love my entire family and I want to help them any way I can, but my daughters are the only ones who are still not corrupt enough to believe me. I would be fine if God took everything away from me and everyone away from me. That is what I have to live with. It's not going to be a happy time. It's not going to be, oh, yay, everyone I love was taken from me. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I trust in God's plan for me. I trust no matter what he does for me, whatever way he guides me, whatever situation he puts me in, I follow him. I am loyal to him. It is all I am. My life was forfeit. I gave it to him. Most are too selfish to ever do a thing like this. But most haven't been broken the way I was, so I can understand it completely. If you still are holding on to the comforts and the pleasures and the escape that this world and the things of this world and the people in this world offer you, you're not ready. You are not ready yet. I hope one day you will be, but that also requires being broken. And I don't want to see anybody broken. It's a double-edged sword. But to get the greatest gift you've ever gotten, you have to be broken. And that keeps flying in my ears. You have to be broken. Because if you are still clinging to those things, that corruption, that darkness will just seep in. You have to be watertight. It's like if you have a canoe and you have just a little pinprick of a hole in it. It's going to seep in, and that hole is going to get bigger and bigger, and eventually you're going to be sinking. You have to seal yourself up tight. You have to make yourself just that armor of God has to be fully fitted to you. And that requires faith. And every day we wake up and we do, even as devout as the most devout people I've seen, we wake up and we embrace the comforts of this world. There's times that I think I don't know if I could live without it. You know, I'm in the South. How could I live without air conditioning? How could I live without all these comforts that are given to me? And God doesn't want you to live without all of them. He just wants you to understand that He is the only comfort, the only escape, the only thing, the only one you ever truly need. I've seen it in people who've lost their children. I've seen it in people who've lost their spouse, you know, whose children or spouse have died or left them or just betrayed them, went off, became drug addicts, prostitutes, whatever, you name it. The Bible talks about all that. And still the servants of God will prevail. If you think it's easy, go take a look read all about Elijah. And read how he showed, because Jezebel married King Ahab in Israel, and they basically started worshiping Baal, false god, a demonic god. And of course, she had all the prophets of Yahweh killed. Elijah, who was in the wilderness, he escaped this. I hear my goats calling to me. Oh, that's somebody singing. I thought it was the goats. So Elijah escaped that. He went there and he, in a contest, proved that he was greater than all the prophets of Baal by lighting the torch that none of them could light, having God light the torch. And when that happened and all of Baal's prophets were killed, well, Jezebel was not happy at all. And Jezebel put a hit out on Elijah. And Elijah was scared out of his mind, and he just ran. And he ran and he ran and he ran back to where he knew God the best, where he could feel God the best, and that was in nature, where I always escape to. He ran to nature and he threw himself once again at God's feet, just like I had to do the other day when the darkness was after me relentlessly. He threw himself at God's feet. And of course, God protected him. And God took care of Jezebel and Ahab and all of the corrupt. But it doesn't always happen that quick, and it doesn't always happen that easy. And if you think that was easy, then you don't know. Elijah was running for his life. Many prophets of Yahweh were killed. You have Delilah, who seduced Samson to find out what his strength was, and God gave Samson his strength through his hair. He told him, "You cut my hair and my strength will come natural like any other man." And while he slept, that's what she did. Just betrayal It's nothing new, folks. It's nothing new. But how do we get past this? How do we get to a point where husband and wife, they submit to each other? Usually the man is supposed to be the spiritual leader, the pillar of the family. But the women have an equally important role. Obviously, maybe it's even more important. They're the ones who spread have the children. But I can tell you right now that it is going to be ugly. And I feel for all of you brothers and sisters especially who are single or who are in a relationship that it's just falling apart because you don't have a basis in God. You don't have that faith in God. At least one of you doesn't. That's all it takes. And every day when you don't have this, I know for a fact, I've dealt with it. When you have someone who doesn't take God seriously or has no faith at all, and maybe they're a lukewarm Christian, maybe they just do it to virtue signal, I don't know, whatever the reason, it's going to get ugly. The best thing you can do is to pray to God for guidance. Don't pray to God asking him to do a certain thing. You can ask him to show your husband or wife, show them the glory and grace of God. Show him his glory. And short of that, it's going to be tough on you. And I'm here for you because I know that feeling. I know exactly what you're going through. You might be lonely. Even if you're in a relationship, you might be lonely. If you're out of a relationship, you're obviously lonely. But you lean on God. Yes, we need human connection. But you know what? We can get that human connection. Go to church. Go out and talk to people. Evangelize. You don't even have to go out for a specific reason to evangelize. You go and you talk to people, and God will just naturally bring it up. I've talked to hundreds, if not more people since I've been saved. And the conversation always goes to spirituality and God. Because that's really the only thing that matters. And that's really all the other things, they're all just extra. Or they're all just darkness. All right, everybody. I'm going to get off of here. I'm going to go talk to my goats some more. I love those little guys. Maybe I'll get a little video of them with them, post it. But I'm trying to get a couple extra videos because I'm going to be leaving town Monday. I'm going to try to maybe get some videos in here and there, but from at least Tuesday to Thursday of next week, I know I'm not going to be getting really any videos in. Going to see my father. So any prayers, I always appreciate it. And I will pray for all of you. If you have something you need me to pray for, you let me know. I always think about all of you because you all are so important to me. You really are. I think about, all of you open up to me. I think about the struggles you're going through, the different things you're going through. all the time, even the ones who really only watch every now and then. You are so important to me, and please let me know if there's anything I can pray for you about, or any way I can help you, any advice you need. I would try my best. I can't promise anything, but I will go out and talk to God and see if he gives me an answer. But sometimes, a lot of times, even for me, God's plan just has to play out, and you just have to sit back and see it playing out. All right, everybody, I love you. God bless.